In conversation with Julie R. Vaineo. Julie R. Vaineo is a self-published indie author residing near Salt Lake City, Utah. In 2018, she published her first book, Kings of Morrone. When she's not writing, she and her partner, Jessie, have many adventures together, mostly in cooking, hiking, analytical talks, and frowning over the adorable four babies. While Julie Rae writes mostly fantasy fiction, combining elements of epic, portal, paranormal, and dark fantasy, she enjoys reading all genres except perhaps for horror stories. After finishing a creative writing program through the Institute of Students Literature, she continued to improve her craft of writing. In 2013, she graduated with her AA degree in psychology. During that time, she expanded in many things, especially focusing on what would prove invaluable for fleshing out characters and plot twists. What started out as a writing prompt in 2005 has now become a nine-book series she's currently working on, The Journals of Ravier. Sometimes she's quite jealous of the character's ability found within her own writing. If that is a sign of anything, takes obsession. And on today's episode of Auto Interview, it's my utmost pleasure, joy, and excitement to have on the show today, Julie Verney. How are you doing, Julie?
Doing well today. How about you, Peter?
I'm doing very fine.
Yeah,
It's quite
yeah,
lovely to have you on
yeah,
the show today, and I
yeah.
love the fact that you have a wonderful and lovely bio.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm
Yeah,
excited to be here.
absolutely. So, Julie, I would like you to tell us about your book, King of Morian, which is the first
Mhm.
book in the Journal of Ravier series. I'd love to ask you, how does this book come about? What inspired you to write King of Moria and the series itself?
Well, it started quite a while ago, back in 2005,
Yeah.
when I was in high school. It started off as a writing prompt where you begin a story by answering a question. And the question I wrote down was some iteration of, what if horses have wings, or what if they could fly? And then it just started off with um, something along the lines of a boy once found this horse, and this is his story. And it started off with Tyler Revere finding this horse in the forest near his home. And it's changed a lot since that writing prompt to
Oh.
what it is now. It's almost unrecognizable from where it began to where it is now. So that's
Oh.
how it began. It started off kind of like a shallow story that I was just working on in high school. Then, as I got older, I deepened the story and really explored Tyler's character and like the story he wanted to tell through
Mm.
me as the author. Um, I think, though, it's become a type of story of self discovery, of
Oh.
like, who do you become, through loss? Like the story ended up Tyler grappling with the loss of his dad. Like it starts a
Oh.
year after he loses his dad,
Oh.
and he's grieving through that. But then he has all these truth bombs revealed within the first chapter of Kings of Muraine, where he finds out his dad's from this other world, Muraine, and Tyler knew nothing about it. And now his dad's gone, not there to answer his questions.
Mm.
And he just has to grapple with truths without his dad there. And through that, he ends up learning just a lot about himself, a lot about his ancestry, his dad. And there's a lot of mystery woven in the story now that
Oh.
wasn't there in the original idea.
Oh. Wow.
So that's kind of like the beginnings of,
That actually sounds quite lovely. Yeah.
does it?
Yeah, it
Yeah,
does sounds quite
yeah,
great. And
yeah.
if you have a cover of it, please show it to the camera just so we see what it looks like.
Okay. So this is the special
Beautiful.
edition
Oh,
of Kings of Moraine. The other one, like the first
that
edition, looks
looks
a little
very
different.
voluminous.
But yeah, yeah.
Speak.
So it's a pretty thick book,
Yeah, and I love the cover
over
design. That
400
looks like
pages.
That looks like a character in front of the cover. What would you like to talk about the cover, the making of the cover? I think I cite something that looks like a character there.
Yes, that's supposed to be Tyler. Yeah.
Oh,
And then this is one of the weapons that's in
oh,
the book, like towards the end.
oh, interesting.
And
Sounds
so
great.
then the back also kind of is like has that for mysterious forest vibe.
Beautiful, I mean. Thank you for
Thank
showing.
you.
And thanks for
Thank
sharing
you.
a bit about the making of it. And now that wants to make me to go to my next question, which of course you have the follow-up book to King of
Mhm.
Morrone in the name of Aunt, the Dragon Within. And I want to
Yes.
particularly say that I love your title. I love your titles for these
Oh,
books.
do
They're
you?
quite,
Oh,
yeah,
good.
actually,
Good. I'm
they're
glad. It's
quite
so hard to hate
inspiring. Yeah,
them.
absolutely. And a
Yeah.
bit compelling to want you to find out, yeah, oh, what's it all about. And I'd like to ask you, for readers who haven't read Aunt the Dragon Within yet,
Mhm.
and of course without giving much information away, could you give us a sneak of what to expect picking up the book?
Of Hunt the Dragon Within.
Absolutely.
Um, so there's like a lot of truth that Tyler is finds out in the first book. And the first book does end on a cliffhanger. It's like one continuous story, books 1 through 3. So the second book just really takes off with Tyler discovering more of like his latent abilities, like magical abilities. And it does kind of start to unravel the mystery of his dad. He starts to learn more about that mystery that's introduced in the first book. And one person who read it and reviewed it was like, this is a roller coaster of a
Wow.
story, just really fast paced, that there's like not much of a breather from the action and the magic.
Wow.
Um, so I don't know if you want to know more. I always worry about giving too much away.
Absolutely. We're not expected to give much away. But then if you
Right.
have a copy too, we'd love to see what the cover looks
Yes.
like.
Yep. Uh, let's
I mean, you've
see.
you,
This
I mean,
is
you've been going on and
oh,
on and on and on and on in this series, and I think you're currently your night series, right?
so I'm working on the fourth book. So
Oh,
I've written three. I'm currently working on the fourth,
yeah.
but I have like 9 books planned. So just kind of a very rough
Wow.
idea for each one. And it's
Sounds like a
quite the
trunk load.
undertaking. Yeah, yeah, it's been a lot. But here is the second one,
Beautiful. Now we have
The
two
Dragon
characters in the
Within.
front.
And then the back has a wolf on it. They're definitely in the story. They're not werewolves per se. They're almost like shape-shifting wolves that are in this
Oh,
series. So I try to include some of those mythical creatures in my stories with a new twist. Yeah, it's great, right?
yeah.
So this character is Tyler, and then this one is the antagonist of
Oh,
like Act One. So the books 1 through 3, this is the bad guy, and then that's also
oh.
another weapon that's in the series.
The bad guys are the ones that keep a novel in suspense. Like they're
Yeah.
always coming up every now and then to fight the protagonist, to fight the actors
Mhm.
and the main characters. Lovely. I
Yeah.
love the I love the look of it, and I think that's an hardcover copy. Very beautiful too.
Yeah, please help me out with the beautiful covers. Yeah.
That's amazing. Now let's talk about the third series in the name of the Onyx Prince. Could you tell us a bit about that too?
Yes, for sure. So I'll start by showing you the cover.
Yeah.
I think so far people have enjoyed this one the most.
Oh,
Onyx Prince, like, isn't it catchy?
yeah. I
A
love the
lot of
sword
people think,
cork. I love the sword crossing in
yeah,
between.
and the crossed. A lot of people think they're like lightsabers. So here we have Tyler in front again.
Wow.
Plus, this is supposed to be Gemma, who's a character introduced in the first book. And then this is Dia, who's introduced in the second book. Um, so this book is even bigger than the
Oh.
first one. It's over
Wow.
600 pages.
Oops.
The special, it's a fat book for sure. So I wrote that one, just kind of some backstory on it. I wrote it during 2020, when everything was just chaos. And a lot of just that negativity happening in my life got channeled into this book.
Wow.
And I didn't make it easy on the characters. Like they
Wow.
really had to work hard in this war that breaks out in the first book. It continues on into the third. And
Mm,
Tyler just is put in all these chaotic situations
yeah.
and has to try and like keep his cool while helping people with their problems, but he still has like that. He wants to find out who his dad really was and
Mm.
like who really killed his dad. Is that something that's
Oh.
introduced in the first book that it's revealed his dad didn't just die by like natural causes or freak accident. It was actually somebody murdered him. And Tyler
Oh,
wants to know the
wow.
truth of that. So that kind of goes through the whole like books 1 through 3. And this is actually like the mystery that will span the series.
Mm,
But Tyler has to like just build up who he is as a person and
mm,
build up his magical abilities and his inner strength and really just learn more about himself and the world that his dad was actually from. And so by the third book, he has more confidence in himself. He might even be a little overconfident by this point,
mm.
but I just show like who he's become through all of these trials and truth bombs. And he really, there's things he does in the book that even surprises me as the author. It's kind of a weird
Oh.
dynamic. When you write, things happen that surprise you that you weren't planning for
Mm,
in books. So he, I'd say people can expect that the antagonist I introduce in the first book is like taken care of by the third, but maybe not in a way they expect. I really tried to not have those old cliched bad guys. I tried to really ramp up the antagonist and make
mm,
him do unexpected things
mm.
that Tyler has to figure out new, fresh ways to deal with. And so
Wow.
that's kind of the gist of it, the vibe of it
Wow.
is just very action packed, but unexpected.
Wow. I think I like your description of this TED book the most,
Yeah.
really.
Oh,
Yeah.
awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, I love the description
It's,
of this TED book the most. Sounds quite lovely and quite compelling to me from this short description
yeah.
you've got, really.
Well, that's the hope that people want to read it. It's
Oh,
it's definitely hard to find the right people. Like it's definitely a time commitment because of how big the books are,
yeah,
you know. But if you love to read, have the time, they're they take you for quite the adventure.
absolutely. Wow, that sounds quite great to me, really. Thank you for sharing. And your answer to that, because I love the way you showed each book to the camera is quite beautiful. And that wants make me to ask you, I've always been fascinated, taken aback, surprised by how writers, especially novelists like yourself, craft long sentences and bring words together in a way that it makes a great novel. I mean, you have paragraph coming together to make chapters coming together to make
Right.
so many pages come together to make an amazing, something like you've just showed to the camera, a very huge, lovely, great novel. And this always
Thank
leaves me
you.
thinking, how exactly they got the ideas and inspiration to bring these works together, to craft one word to the next one without missing word, without having a twist of change in it, going in an hurry manner, keeping the consistency, keeping the characters flowing from one end to another, maintaining the plot twist without missing something. I mean, it's to me, it's a trunkload of
Right.
talent, it's a trunkload of work to get this done. And then it always leave me thinking, how did they get the ideas? Where did those words come from? Where did those sentences come together and match together to
right.
make an amazing
To
book,
make this right, to make really
Absolutely. So
interesting stories. Yeah.
it always leave me thinking. And I would like to ask you, as far as writing is concerned, how do you get your inspirations and ideas? Where did they come from?
I think it just kind of stems from listening to stories as a child and like
Mm.
really listening to what vibes with me and taking inspiration. I've also taken inspiration from video games, which is a surprising
Oh,
source of inspiration for me. of like how to take video media like games or movies, how would I like translate it into a story? So sometimes it's taking that, describing some of my favorite scenes in movies in book form, and then taking those um, examples and translating it to a new story that's never been told. It really
Mm,
can help to turn stories that have already been told into word form, and then playing around with like the words, cutting out like too much fluff, making, you don't want it to be like too word heavy, right?
mm,
Because otherwise readers get bogged down to like get on with the story. So sometimes it's trying to find that balance of how much do I describe, of the characters, of the world, the scene, and what do I leave to the imagination for the
mm.
reader, and that sort of thing. I don't know if that answers the question
Yeah, it does. Absolutely.
satisfyingly, but yeah, I just try to take what I see and turn it into words and play around with it.
Mm,
Kind of like an example would be when I go on walks, when I go on hikes, I'll see interesting looking things out in nature. And I'll be like, how can I describe that leaf shape? How can I describe that texture? And one that sticks in my mind is these leaves on this bush that they looked like fans,
mm,
just fluttering in the wind. They looked like
mm,
these upright fans. And that was like an interesting visual for me to
mm,
compare natural things to things that we have that are man-made,
mm.
and that can
Wow,
be those like comparisons can be fun to play around with.
absolutely. Wow, that's quite great, really. I mean, I love hearing how, you get your inspiration and ideas because sometimes it's quite surprising to me. And I've asked so many people this kind of question. They're like, I get ideas from things I've seen around me. I've got ideas from my dreams, my personal dreams. I've got ideas from my, real life experiences or from the experiences of friends. And somebody I heard a story or through conversation hilariously. And, it's always quite fun. Our writers derive ideas from different sections and different parts. Thanks for sharing.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you. And I'd just like to ask you, Julie, apart from the genre of Ravier series, do you have any
Mhm.
other works you've authored or say currently working on?
I do. I have another series called the Fairy Tale Unveiled series, which is going to be like fairy tale retellings. So, like, think Brothers Grimm fairy tales, like
Mm.
Rapunzel and Cinderella, but it's going to be set within the world of Muraine. And one I started with was Rapunzel, and that book's going to be called The Tower's Captive. So this is going to be like set thousands of years prior to Tyler's series.
Wow,
It's going to be like the times of myths and legends of Muraine. I'm working on right now.
that's great. Sounds like a
It's going to
trunk
be
load,
pretty
really.
fun.
I hope you find some time to sleep.
I do. I do. Yeah.
Yeah, because I can realize how demanding writing takes. Takes quite a lot of
it,
time,
it can be.
concentration. I write something myself, but this morning I sat down and I wrote something. I
Oh,
woke up
no.
to a very nice inspiration and I just penned it down quickly, yeah, just so
Yeah.
before it flies away.
Right, right. Something that will remind you of the idea.
Absolutely.
Yes,
Yeah,
definitely. That's very important. Definitely. Very
absolutely.
important. Yeah.
Thank you, Julie. This is quite fun. I enjoy hearing
It
your
is.
answers to these questions.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Now, could you tell us what publishing is like for a published author like yourself? Are there any challenges you've encountered in the process of writing this book and also ever since it got published?
So I went with the route of being self-published. So that means I have to find like my own editor, my own cover designer, and then my own distributor, which is quite the undertaking. And it takes like a lot of time away from writing more stories.
Hmm.
But I do like having that creative control over, what gets to stay in the story. With traditionally published books, authors definitely have to work with their publishing house on like what gets to be in that final book. But then with
Hmm.
this route, I get to decide what's in there and what gets cut. And
Hmm.
it's definitely an undertaking though.
Oh,
Definitely time consuming, and it's very technical, which uses different muscles in the brain than
yeah,
writing. And so
absolutely.
sometimes, yeah, sometimes I get down like with my creative muse by doing all of the publishing work. But I think I've found now a good balance. At the beginning, it was very overwhelming. But as I publish each book, it gets easier and easier to go through
Mm,
that whole process of
absolutely.
first writing it to all the way to publishing.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, I love your take on that. And also, I'd like to have your opinion about criticism. What's your take on criticism? I know because we've got so many readers would say this and that and this, and sometimes it can counteract, sometimes it can be positive, sometimes it can be
Yeah.
negative, sometimes it can be a mix of it, and sometimes it can just be entirely off. Yeah. What's your take on criticism? How do you react to them?
Well, I really love feedback, especially constructive criticism. Like if
Yeah.
people have a problem with a story,
Mm,
there's definitely things that can be learned from that. If
absolutely.
they offer that criticism in kindness and well intentioned, I
Mm,
really love that sort of feedback. I try to take that and kind of take it to heart and analyze, is it valid? And if I
mm,
do think it's valid criticism, I try to apply that lesson for the next book. I try to not like linger on what's already published, what's already done. I
yeah,
just try to apply it for the next project.
that's great.
Um, and then positive feedback. Who doesn't love that, right? Like that's
Everybody does.
really nice when you hear positive things. When it's criticism that seems to have like no purpose aside from to just be mean spirited, I try
Mm,
to just disregard that and not
mm,
even let it sit anymore. It was harder at the beginning
mm.
to get that sort of feedback,
Oh,
but now
wow.
I just kind of let it go over my head and be like, well, there people are welcome to have their opinions, right?
Absolutely.
And I just am like, well, my book wasn't for them, and that's okay. That's the perspective I try to have, is that
Yeah,
my stories aren't for everybody, and that's okay,
absolutely.
you know.
Yeah. Love your take on that, actually. I love your take on that. Thank you so much for sharing. And now, please, before we wrap up for today, is there
Mhm.
anything that you love to share with the viewers about your books that we did not mention in this interview and you'd love the viewers to know? And also, what sort of advice do you have for writers who are looking forward to publishing a book in your particular genre?
With like what advice to offer other
Yeah.
writers is don't give up and really believe in yourself. You
Mm,
know, like write self-help books on writing and try to apply the advice that speaks to you, that vibes with you. And but don't take all advice as like you have to apply all of it.
mm,
Take what really helps you and leave the rest at the door.
absolutely.
That's my best advice for new writers. Um, as far as anything to add,
Yeah.
about my books. I've been thinking about that one for a while and I just draw a blank. I think what I want people to know is just kind of how writing the story itself has changed me as a person. You know,
Wow.
watching how these characters work through problems and how they build relationships. It's really
Mm,
inspiring to try and apply those same things to my life
mm,
and to like not always judge somebody by first impressions because there's definitely
yeah.
characters that Tyler encounters throughout the series that at first glance you think they're not a great character, they're not a good person, but
Mm,
you really learn more about them and you realize how they do have a heart of gold.
mm,
And so that's just really kind of a great takeaway for this series,
absolutely.
is to really don't buy into what you believe about people at first glance
Absolutely.
because they could have a heart of gold under it all.
Mm, wow.
So,
This is quite
That's a
com
cool thing that I like. The more I read my books, I see that, and I'm like, wow, I did that. It's surprising sometimes
it
that
is, yeah. Oh, I love your take on this and I enjoy you talking about it. Quite fun, quite lovely, quite great to me too. Thank you so much for sharing. Yeah. And again, before we leave, yeah,
Mhm.
could you show
Yeah.
the book to the camera while you talk about where interested viewers can get a copy of the book? What platform are they available
Of
on?
the first one
Yeah, both
again.
first, second, and third, all of it.
Okay. So they're all available on Amazon
Into
and
Muraine.
Barnes and Noble, but you can also go to my website, which is just my author name,
Okay.
jrvaineo.com. And then there's a link um, that shows where it's available globally,
Yeah.
because there's a lot of different places you can buy it. It's also the first book is available on audiobook through Audible, Spotify, oh, and I think Kobo are the three major ones
Hmm.
that it's available through.
That's
On
great.
just the first book for now on audiobook right now.
Absolutely. And I left a link in the discussion part of this interview where interested viewers can get a copy of Julie Rae's books directly on Amazon, Barnes& and Nobles, on our website, and also on other platform. I also left a link to our social media pages for possible followings. So thank you so much, Julie,
Thank
for
you.
accepting the invitation to be featured on P English Literature. It's awesome, and I must say again that it is wholeheartedly wholesome having this conversation with you, despite our first and second
Mm.
time Zoom, disruption. We're finally here. We talked
Yes,
about it and
yes,
we
we
did
figured
it,
it out in the end. Yes,
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on.
thank
This is
you.
quite fun.